On today's episode of Watch JR Go, we are here with my Clark GCP25 fork truck. And today, we need to sort out a couple things on it. What is going on, guys? I am Watch JR Go, and like I said, we are here with my Clark Lifty Boy, also known as a fork truck, forklift. We call it the forklift, obviously. That is the Kansas term for these things. And this thing has been awesome. I paid $1,000 for it. And I stole a propane tank from my dad, which he actually ended up needing back. So I had to give that back, and I had to go buy a propane tank. I think that tank was about $150 used for an aluminum tank. Aluminum tanks are very, very expensive. But if you ever lifted up a steel one, you know that you want the aluminum one. And I wanted a gauge, so we've got the correct setup on there. Exactly what I wanted. When I bought this thing, it had a new seat in 2018. The seat's in great condition, and it's got all of its preventative maintenance written right on the mast. Oh yeah, it's a triple mast, tons of height, side shift. I mean, this thing has all the features that you want in a forklift. And it had a timing belt and a water pump done in 2018, which is great. I'm super pumped about that. Preventative maintenance said it was done in 2019. I don't really know what all that entailed, but maybe, hopefully, it was an oil change and you know, topping off the coolant, checking everything out. Now, in the last video, we were pulling that LS out of the cradle for the C5, and I need to use the forklift to do the exact opposite of that, put the new engine in the cradle. And the thing was just screaming and screaming and screaming. And I've always thought it was like torque converter slip or something. It's not what it was. It's the hydraulic system being basically completely out of hydraulic fluid. It does leak a lot, and we've always thought it was just oil or something like that. Who knows what the leak is? Now we do know it's hydraulic fluid. First, there's no filter in there, which we can't really fix today because it does use a special filter, but we can fill it up with hydraulic fluid. And it also leaks a bunch of oil, so we're gonna change the valve cover gasket and whatever else we can get done today. Probably an oil change, maybe fire it up with some kind of ring reseating mechanic in a bottle stuff to make it run a little bit better. I mean, it runs fine, it's got plenty of power, all 115 horsepower this little 4-cylinder makes. It does whatever we want with that kind of power, but it does smoke a lot. So I do think like the rings are worn at minimum. I mean, it's old. When I bought it, the Hobbs meter had broke at 2,934 hours, quite a few hours on it, and it's said broken on the list for quite a while there. So we know that doesn't operate. It probably has like 4,000 hours on it. It's not crazy, but it's a few hours. I think this was also built in '02. So this beast is powered by the Mitsubishi 4G64, I think. It's a little 2.4 liter 4-cylinder engine, and the transmission is right here. You can see it's kind of mounted backwards. The accessory drive is on that side of the engine, and the rear main and the rear of the engine's right here, connected to the transmission, and the hydraulic pump is hiding down in here as well, somewhere. Over here we've got where our hydraulic filter goes, a place to check the hydraulic fluid. Right here we've got our transmission fluid check and fill, and right here is our engine oil check. Fill it on top of the engine, and you can actually get a pan underneath this thing to drain the oil down. And the filter you can do from the top, it just runs down onto the ground. You're definitely gonna get dirty doing this job. As you can see, everything in this engine bay is covered in oil. Years of grime and buildup. I'm not sure how they did a timing belt and didn't do a valve cover gasket with it. So my hope is O'Reilly's has this valve cover gasket. It is a standard Mitsubishi engine, and it was in a bunch of cars. So first, let's find out if we can go get this gasket today, grab some oil and a filter, and second, tear this thing all apart, clean it up, and get it back together with a bunch of new parts and serviced. Also, I wasn't sure where to get forklift hydraulic fluid. It turns out the Mystical from Atwood's is the solution.
Danger! Exactly.
MS68 or AW68 or something like that. So we'll make an Atwood's run and an O'Reilly's run, and hopefully that gets this thing all taken care of from a parts perspective. This is gonna be my first time really working on a forklift other than putting a battery in this thing the day I bought it. That's all it's needed. I mean, it needs a vaporizer. Eventually it does leak down, but it runs perfectly and it'll stay on pressure for a very long time. So we just haven't needed to worry about that. So let's pull the air filter off to start with. I've never serviced that. It would be good to take a look at it, see if it needs anything. We have all the parts on the way at O'Reilly's. The valve cover gasket I found matches, I think, based on the pictures, a Mitsubishi Mighty Max from 1994. That's my reference for this thing. And the filter on a CGP25 is the Baldwin B421, which we're changing to whatever filter O'Reilly's has in stock. Check out this air filter, it looks perfect. August 2119, look at that, they print the date on it. Filter looks brand new, so that's definitely going back. Next up, we're gonna start by pulling the air intake piping off of this thing, getting everything off the valve cover, and getting that out of it. I mean, look at the oil. There's so much oil leaking on that engine. It has literally covered everything. That engine's not black, it's silver. Oil is everywhere. This thing will not come off. So we're gonna try to get this old reinforced hose to let go. Getting it pretty hot, as you can see. Come on, girl. Ah, there we go. All right, so we, Darrell and I both pulled on that for like 20 minutes before we... I don't know where the PCV is on this thing, but wherever it is, it's in trouble because of the amount of junk coming back through this vaporizer. I mean, let's grab a light. You can actually see a bunch of oil. All that oil is coming right out of the top of this and back into here. And there's a puddle of oil in that hose, which means it's like blowing the oil up through here and being sucked back into this IMCO vaporizer on here, model 100. There's so much junk. This all needs kind of cleaned up, and hopefully this new valve cover gasket solves most of the issues. We got new seals for the bolt through. There is just nasty oil everywhere on here. That really is it. There's something else holding it onto the cover here, the timing cover. Just must be one screw in here. Hard to see anything in this. Oh, I see, the spark plug wire holders. Those hold the timing cover onto the valve cover. So there's 2 more bolts and then you're good to go. One here, one there. Man, it is tough to get in here without an extension and just the perfect set of tools to get these back 2 bolts. They are 10s. At least being 10s is a nice touch. But you'll need like a 3-inch extension and some kind of swivel to fight through the fan shroud. Woo, man, that was a tricky one to get into there, but got it off. Be careful because it's very easy to drop that bolt. It does look like most of it will fall all the way to the ground, which would be awesome. Man, if you're doing a timing job on this, please do the valve cover gasket. I don't think it's a big ask. I feel like it's pretty standard. Everything's leaking on this engine. She old. 2002, just years of work. Come on. Come on. Oh, it looks horrible inside. Wow. I guess it's probably had 3 oil changes in its life. Or I knocked all that dirt in. I don't know. It's everywhere. She's just dirty. Okay. Well, off to the parts washer with this. We're going to use the old smart washer. And this might get BG'd. I think this thing needs BG'd. We'll take a better look in a second. Okay, inside the valve cover, it doesn't look that bad. And also, is there even a gasket? I sure hope I got the right one. But the new one appears to be a nice rubber. This one is really, really strange. It's like a paper that's adhered. Honestly, we can just kind of sit here and it'll magically clean itself. You can see the dirt will start to wash away. Especially, we found that if you like let it sit in this for about 15 minutes, everything does clean itself up. And it's already making a nice spot on the top of the valve cover. But if you get in there with the brush, knock this whole thing out in a matter of seconds. So we're gonna have a nice clean engine and hopefully no more leaks after this. Some of this oil and dirt is probably a 1/16 of an inch thick. It is just crammed on there. The valve cover looks like a new piece of metal. Check that out. It is way, way, way better. I'm all cleaned up now after running the solvent tank for a while. We're letting this thing finish draining down. Obviously, I ran solvent through all the passages to clean out PCV and everything else in there. So that is gonna take a little bit more time to dry off. Cleaned all the bolts up, and let's take a look inside our engine here and see just what we're dealing with. This isn't that bad. It just has weird dirt. Like this dirt looks like it was creeping in through right there out on the edge. Like the metal looks nice, and then there's a little bit of sludge. The returns are working. Well, as long as we got the right valve cover gasket on the way, which I sure hope we do, this will go back together and we'll start running BG products in here with like Motul as well. And I think this thing will be insanely well taken care of over its next long run time. And I might do 2 oil changes too. The timing belt still looks wonderful though. No cracking, anything over there. So let's get our parts, do this oil change, and get it back on the road. All right, let's make some forklift magic happen. Later guys, thank you. We got a valve cover gasket. This is the cross reference for your Baldwin B421 if you need it, 51064. Let's get over to Atwood's, buy some hydraulic fluid. It runs like a tractor hydraulic fluid. All right, we've got way too much AW68 loaded up. 5-gallon bucket is the smallest thing we could get, so I'd probably need like a quart in reality. But let's get back to the shop and get this thing going. Hey, let's fire this thing up because this thing is an old school engine that can run without the valve cover. Let's look at the oil. You can watch it oil. Oh, we're squirting it now. Ah! All right, that's all we can run it. As soon as we really got the oil, started spraying me in the face. Light's all covered with it. But anyway, it's always cool to see these things run. You can see all the oil flying up out of the oil squirters and draining back down through its drain back holes there. All right, that was good entertainment. Had to be done. I'm super excited. Using the Mighty Max for a reference worked. This is the correct valve cover gasket. I thought, based on how this thing looked, that it was like a phenolic spacer instead of a real gasket. It turns out it's actually a gasket, and this gasket was trash. It's brittle. They RTV'd the corners, which is right, but like this gasket was definitely ruined. Rubber gaskets aren't supposed to do that. So we've got the correct Velcro gasket here. If we can rip into the package, we've got new rubber washers to go around the bolts. We've got everything here. And I'll put some fresh RTV in there. Yes, awesome, awesome. This is such an upgrade from that smashed gasket that had been leaking for years and years and years. If you're not a forklift dealer, it's kind of hard to figure out parts on these things, you know? So I'm super happy that we ended up getting the right parts for this thing with about a million Google searches, and O'Reilly's found the right cross-reference for the oil filter. Shout out to them, because what was coming up wasn't right. New rubber pieces here. These go on these little metal washers that hold the thing on. So those just kind of fall out like that. Let's clean them off. I did clean all these in the solvent tank first, and then boom, little cone washer there. Same thing on the next one. Oh yeah, this is gonna be awesome. There's a little rubber semicircle that protrudes out of the front of this thing that you use to get the cam out of the engine. Hard as a rock again, just like the old, you can hear it. You heard that, listen to this one. That's more like rubber, it's flexible still. I'm mind blown that this didn't get changed when they did a full timing set. We've got our half moon in with some RTV on there, so that's ready to seal up. And now we're gonna do the corners here on the cam sprocket. Maybe we're gonna do the corners. Okay, there we go. I got a good bit of the goo in there, and one more big dab. Really, I just hit these with a dollop now. I used to think you needed to like fill them up, but eventually you learn. Squeeze the dollop in there and let the gasket do the work. So I think I've got a good corner seal right there. I'll put a little bit more in this corner, just a hit. Okay, we're good. We're ready to put the valve cover back on. Let's get this thing sealed up. All right, now to snake the valve cover back in here. Any second now. We've got to be close. Yeah, we are on there. But for some reason, it's like, there it goes. All right, that's better. Let me get our washers and bolt this thing back down. So can someone tell me what the preventative maintenance schedule for a CGP25 is? Because apparently it's nothing. So, since we're in here, I figured I might as well pull the spark plugs out, see what those look like. Obviously the wells are full of oil from that cover leaking. I don't know. That looks like propane burn to me, right? I mean, a little white, kind of lean, but honestly fine. NGK, these are going back in. These look great. Cool. That's not upsetting at all. It got spark plugs at some point in its life. Well, if you need to change the oil in your forklift, this is how you do it. I always thought you had to jack these things up, but instead you just do it blind and get a pan underneath there. There's enough of a gap. Socket on a CGP25 to 17. Oh, I dropped it. Oh well.
A few minutes later.
Oh, we're still dripping a little bit of oil. All right, I'm gonna put the drain plug back in. Oh, the drain plug's in the pan. Oh man. All right, guess I'm going hunting first. Pan plug finder. I gotta be close. Where's it at? There it is. Okay, I'm gonna go clean this up, clean my hands off, and get this back up under the... That oil filter is buried down in there, so I've got the pan underneath it, and hopefully, if it's tight, you're in trouble, that's for sure. Hopefully I can get this thing loose. Oh man, that's gonna be tough to get the oil filter wrench in there too. I was hoping my gloves would let me grip it, but it won't grip. If you have to work on forklifts for a living, I feel bad for you. This is not a fun job. It's not terrible, it's a great engine, but man, none of this is accessible. The forklift gets Motul 8100 extra clean. So, oh man, brand new bottle. I thought this one was already open. Let me pop the inner cap. And we are ready to fill this thing up. Rags to riches, the cheap forklift story. You know these things are worth like $10,000. 2000 to 2002 Clarks like this, all of them are going for like 10 grand plus. So I guess if I decide to sell this after this, we're good to go. And the forklift is fixed. Oh, hydraulic fluid, the only thing we actually took all this apart for. All right, we're gonna try to pour a 5-gallon bucket of hydraulic oil into this with my sort of broken funnel. It's the biggest funnel I have, obviously. So anyway, this is kind of just like the pour spout on the Motul. There we go. And we should have a internal cap too, which needs a pry bar. Cool, that worked out better than what I was doing before. All right, so tough to see how low this thing is. We know it's pretty low. It wasn't on the dipstick on the hydraulic fluid. So I'm just gonna pour in a good amount and then we'll take it back out and check. Hopefully we win. Oh man, this is tough. Oh, that didn't work, did it? Oh no, it's still going in. We were good. Also, there's no vent in these unless you punch a hole in the bucket, which I don't exactly want to do. I'm hoping that is how low this thing was. Cool. Let's check her. Dipstick on this thing's fun. It's a cute little dipstick. Tiny little thing. And it's right beside the filler, which is also the filter housing. And really hard to get into without getting it dirty because everything in here is super dirty. And now, if I can get the dipstick back in, let's start this thing up and hopefully never hear that pump screaming for dear life again. And, like, it's just gonna be so much better. I think it runs better already. So I'm gonna go ahead and do wires. The wires are coming tomorrow. Plugs were great. No more hydraulic pump scream. Or maybe it was all just oiling issues or something. Let's, we're gonna drive it for a bit, see what happens, and then we'll get back on this thing. I'm gonna let it idle. That ring seal stuff, once it's idle for 15 minutes. The brand new valve cover gasket is leaking. So I just tightened it down. Oh, it's hot. That's so hot. All right, hopefully it's not leaking anymore. So we'll monitor that for a minute here. I hope I got it. Is it still leaking? Good deal. Here. I got a little bubble. in business. We can use my forklift in videos again. Not to mention, it should stop leaking all over the floor, I hope. What a big improvement, and so much more work than I expected to do today. Let's go whip this thing. The forklift's back in action, moving engines around again, which means we should be ready to pick up the old LS1, get it out of our way, swap over all of our parts, and get the other engine back in the Corvette. That needed to happen. That like desperately needed to happen. As you guys saw, the forklift had not been like maintenanced in reality in a lot of years. I wonder again what that preventative maintenance means. I think it means do nothing. Anyway, that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop, watchjrgo.com for cool shirts just like this. And please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. Now all I have to do is clean up my big mess. That was a disaster. It's hard to lift up forklifts, so we just kind of had to do everything on the ground. It worked out.